Hello, hello. Tonight we have a wonderful show here on PowerPurposeRadio.com. I am Christy Johnson, your host of The Destiny Show. Tonight we have a wonderful guest here who's a domestic violence survivor. Her name is Miss Dawn King. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It is such a pleasure to meet a woman on the other side of that violence. I'm so happy and proud that you had a chance to get out of the cycle and to live a healthy and safety life.
Yeah, I'm grateful to be here, and I appreciate you having me on your show. It is a wonderful thing. Some may say once they actually hear my story, it may not have been as bad as some others, but there's no real level of domestic violence. Kind of all rims in the same category.
Yeah, it does. And just because one person in a domestic violence relationship may have received other types of abuse, other type of physical abuse, other types of sexual abuse, other types of emotional abuse, other types of emotional, psychological abuse, does not mean that they have to minimize the type of abuse that you received.
Yes.
And tonight, I want to give some data. I want to break down some data for individuals that are listening because domestic violence is a foreign and a national thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say a foreign, that means internationally, anything that's overseas. And domestic means anything that's around in the United States. We have 50 states in the United States. All 50 states of the United States are affected by domestic violence. And every 9 seconds, a woman in the USA is beaten in a domestic violence relationship. And with that being said, domestic violence is the single cause of injury to women in the United States. And this type of injury reflects more than car accidents, mugging, any type of unrelated health incidents. So domestic violence is the number one cause of injury at this point in time in the lives of women and children.
That's sad. It's really hard to believe and understand. You never sometimes even can imagine the person that goes through it because it's not an outward appearance all the time. And that saying, never judge a book by its cover, means
Yes.
a lot because it doesn't always show with bruises. Sometimes it's just mental,
Yeah.
so it's a wide range with it, and it is sad that in this day and age it's still coming more vivid and more often, and that's something that we all need to work on.
Yes, and not to touch on your age because you look wonderful. I just want to say because domestic violence, it doesn't have an age on it,
No.
doesn't have a race on it. It doesn't have just a category, it doesn't have just a community. It is everybody's type of awareness that we should be focused on, and that's keeping every human being safe.
Yes.
And I would like to ask you, can you go into detail on some of the type of abuse that you received in your domestic violence relationships?
Sure. It kind of stemmed when I was 18. You're 18, you think you know it all.
Mm-hmm.
So you hear and you listen, but you don't take heed to what's being told to you. And I was with my so-called sweetheart, and that high school type of boyfriend, your first love, that puppy love type of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
ended up having my first son by him, and it got to the point where we would break up. We were doing the off and on type thing, and he was the popular kid in school, and I was kind of popular because he was in the sports, I was in the dance, so it was kind of like a camaraderie type thing. I didn't chase him, he chased me, and then he had girls following him. So by the time we really called ourselves being together, it was a point where I was jumped because of the girls that wanted to be with him. Then it was a time where after I actually had my son, and we moved in together. I was 19 by now, had my son, and we moved in together, and he just started going downwards. He had a good job at first, had a car, I was working, everything was good. That white picket fence type thing. We went from an apartment to a house. Well, we went from a house to an apartment. I'm sorry, and he fell back into meeting with his old friends and started using drugs. And once the drugs took place, that's when the abuse took place with me. So I want to tell you some of it, but I don't want to tell you all of it, only because I have a book series coming out. So it'll kind of take away from the book. But I will say, I almost lost my life and my freedom. And the hardest part was removing myself from my son. And then this taking place in front of my son at the age of 2.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that stuck with me forever.
Mm-hmm.
And although he did physically beat me up and beat me down in the corner, I couldn't let that happen anymore. So one good time for me was enough. The verbal abuse took place long before the physical.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept thinking, oh, he'll stop. They don't stop. And for a long time, I've been wanting to speak to our young ladies that are growing up. Like, you have to know your value. You have to know your worth.
Yes.
You have to know that once they come out of their mouth in any negative aspect, that's where you need to make a change. And the change is for you. And if you do have a child or children, it's definitely for them. Because you don't want your child or children to continue to see this happen and take place to their mom and in front of them. And then they'll end up thinking that this is the way of life. This is what I'm supposed to do as a young boy. Or this is what I'm supposed to accept as a little girl. And both aspects are wrong.
Ooh, you just touched on a lot of good stuff. And I'm going to go back to the teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've noticed that with teenagers ages 14 through, I want to say at least 22, this is the highest time of the intimate partner domestic violence relationship category.
Yeah.
And this is when you're getting ready for college. This is when you become victimizations of the campus, what they call campus WHORE,
Mm-hmm.
because they've already spread your name around on the campus now.
Mm-hmm.
And so they know that, oh, he's had you and that you're a little easy target. But, if you at a party one night and, you're looking good and you're dressed nice and they looking at you and eyeing you down because because they want some of that too. And so instead of coming to you like a man or like a young boy that's been raised and wanting to date you, then it comes to where they start to sexually harass you.
And sometimes that's not even true. The young guys at that age feel the need to say that they've been with this person and that person because of the way they look and because they're trying to keep up with their buddies. Mm-hmm. So if their buddies say they've been with 3 girls, then they're going to have to up it and say they've been with 4. Mm-hmm. So you could be the attractive one and get that label. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I literally forgot that has happened to me before. I was supposedly with someone that I was not with, mm-hmm. and I wasn't a promiscuous person. And so for our young ladies listening, sometimes you don't even have to do anything wrong to get that label. Yeah. But don't let that persuade you to do wrong. It's kind of like ignoring, when somebody's talking about you. Because what I've learned here lately is favor isn't fair. And by that I mean we all go through walks and different steps. God has a purpose. And sometimes we don't understand what he's doing or why he's doing it the way he's doing it. Yes. So he will put us through a lot of hard times, some messy times, some pain. Yes. But it's all for a good purpose. The thing is you have to learn to trust him and know that through him everything is possible. So it's hard when you're young because I grew up in the church, but I veered away from the church in my early 20s. And, you know, mainly because I was listening to my boyfriend at the time, and he didn't want to get up on the Sunday. And I could literally, I'm 50 in March. I'll be 50.
Oh, look at that! You just had to give us your age.
So I can literally count the number of males that I've been with on my 10 hands. And I need these young girls to know and understand that doesn't make you.
Yeah.
You know, eventually it'll end up breaking you. And sometimes it's because of lack of maturity, or it's because you don't have what you're looking for at home.
Yeah.
And, you know, so with me, it's been a long journey. You know, it's been a long struggle, and I'm still growing, because, you know, if I wasn't still growing, God would have taken me away from here by now. But he's not finished with me yet.
Yeah.
So it's a lot.
I like
It's
that.
a
I
lot
like
that I want to say. It's truly a lot, and I've been wanting to say this to our young ladies for a long time, for a very long time. So I'm so honored to be able to speak a little bit of some of the things that I want to say, and this will be my first platform, so I can continue to speak some more.
Well, let me tell you that the Destiny Show is very honored to have you, and this is what we like to do. This is what our motto is to heal hearts, minds, and souls of domestic violence. We want everyone to know that you don't have to let that abuse or that violence or that person make you. You make yourself. You are the person that God gave life to. On your birth certificate, it didn't say domestic violence victim. And don't let your death certificate say murdered by domestic violence. It's time for everyone to stand up, have a voice, break the silence, be your own advocate. This is what I rally for. This is what I teach. This is what I stand for, because 80% of all abuse that occurs in domestic violence relationship is related to substance abuse. And out of that substance abuse is the alcoholism.
Yeah.
It is the drugs. It is the whatever they can snort, whatever they can inject, whatever they can swallow.
And a lot of times, the abusive person is lacking great self-esteem.
Most definitely.
And so they have to find a means to control the next person.
Yes.
Because it's making them look of power. You know, it's giving them a reason, so to speak, to survive or to live or to be valid. And in today's society, unfortunately, it's a lot of low self-esteem people walking around. And if you think about it, our youth look at value when it comes to material things. The type of clothes they wear.
Yes.
You know, the young ladies, the hairstyles that they expose, the gentlemen, the cars that they drive, and the tennis shoes that are on their feet, and the young ladies, the bags that you carry.
Yeah.
And I may like a lot of fashion. I'm definitely a shoe person, and I love to dress. But I will tell you, if my bank account does not have six figures, there's no need for me to walk around with a Gucci, with a Louis Vuitton, with a Prada, and I only have $5 in that bag. There's no need for me to have $300 tennis shoes on, and I didn't graduate high school, or I'm still living at home. You know, the thing is, when I mention favor, and I'm mentioning favor because that's what God has. He has favor for us.
Yeah.
So you can look at a person. Somebody will look at me, and somebody that may be watching this today may not even know my real history or my story. And that's why I wrote my books. But to look at me, you would never think that I'm going through and have gone through all of the things that I have. And I'm still going through things. I'm not where I used to be, but I'm going to where I'm supposed to be. And, you know, and with that, I deal with situations within my personal life, within my family, that's not good. And, you know, and I wish things were different. So what I try to tell people is, or, you know, I really gear towards these young ladies, and I have two boys, two sons, well, they're grown men now. But, you really have to be strong for yourself.
Yes, you do.
And
you do.
I came up with this slogan people don't like, but it's okay. I like it.
Okay.
You know, they always say tough skin. You know, like if you ashy and your skin is tough. Well,
Oh,
I say
dry skin.
Dry skin.
Yeah.
Well, I say alligator skin. Okay.
Okay.
So tough skin is not always bad. The tougher you are, the more you can handle. And if you think for 1 second, when an alligator emerges from the water, all of the water that's on the alligator's back goes every direction. So nothing stays in a straight form, in a straight line. So
Yeah.
everything that's coming your way, treat it the same way as that water on that alligator. So it doesn't stay to you. It's broken up. By the time they call you that negative name, by the time they say you can't do something, by the
Yeah.
time they tell you you aren't valuable, you
Yes.
have no worth, and
Yes.
you're low self-esteem, and nobody else will want you but me.
Yes.
You let it divide up just like that water does when it comes off that alligator back. So you have that skin of an alligator, and you wearing the suit of armor of God. I mean, what can you be worried about?
Yes.
You have double protection. And there's a thing that's called conditional and unconditional love.
Yes.
You want the unconditional love. You don't want conditional love.
Yes.
Meaning
Yes.
he's only going to love you if you do things the way he says do them.
Mm-hmm.
If you wear what he wants you to wear. If you work according to him and only him. Or let's take it a little further and say same-sex relationships, because they go through the same thing we go through.
Yes, they do.
And whether he or she, however you're living and you want to call it, there's no such thing as somebody that loves you with conditions. If there are conditions, that is not love.
Yes,
that's called
right.
control. And as long as they have that control over you, then you're going to come up short. And that's what we want to avoid. Love doesn't boast. Love doesn't brag. It doesn't keep count of the wrongdoing.
I spoke about that on my first show.
Yeah, so
that's right.
we have to pay
Corinthians.
attention to that.
Yes.
And we have to love ourselves so much that next person can't take that away from you.
Yes, and that's exactly what power and control is. That domestic violence cycle. That's all it is. You have the low self-esteem in the men, and then you have the one who wants to control everything about the woman, control her mind, her thoughts, her wants, her needs.
Yeah, so my thing is it wasn't a part of the domestic part where I chose and I moved to the West Coast. It was because I was transitioning to do something else, and I didn't realize what God was doing for me and with me. So I'm saying all of this to say, if you're in that relationship and it is abusive and you feel like there's something that you don't want to leave behind, meaning material things, your clothes, let me tell you, like I said, I'm all about clothes and fashion and my shoes. Lord knows about my shoes. But I left and went to the West Coast. Put all of my stuff in storage. A fully furnished 2-bedroom, 3 closets full of clothes and shoes, all in storage. And I left with a suitcase full of clothes. A week's worth where I just kept recycling. Of course, I had more underwear than I needed, but a week's worth of clothes, and I kept recycling. And so I'm saying this to say, if you need to leave when he's gone or when she's gone, take only yourself and your child and don't look back. If you can't carry it, leave it. You can always regain those clothes, those shoes, and whatever else. You take the most important thing, and the most important thing is yourself, your life, and your child or your children. And don't look back, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to get to the point where you're trying to survive, and then you end up possibly either losing your life, your child's life, or your freedom because you had to act on a self-defense thing. And the way the court systems are run now, I'm even nervous to say that self-defense will still work in your favor because you just never know how things can lie.
That's right. And good thing you brought that up about self-defense is because every abuser is very aware of the justice system. They are very aware of how to speak, how to stand, and how to look when they're speaking to a judge.
Yeah.
And they know exactly what exactly to say to have that judge deny a restraining order.
Yeah, because that's a person of many characters and many faces.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have many faces, you tend to veer off on what suits you for that moment.
Yeah.
And so if it suits you for that moment to act like you were the victim and not the victimizer, then you may be able to get over on that. And sometimes if the person doesn't have a track record of saying that you called the police on them, or you have a restraining order or anything like that, I mean, they don't have a lot to go on. It's just your word against their word. And to try to alleviate some of that situation, I'm just begging, that if anybody feels uncertainty, whenever you feel something on you and it keep resonating on you, that same thought and that same feeling, that's a sign for you to act on it.
Yeah.
So don't ignore it. Take that as God He's speaking to you.
Yeah. And I want to say as well is that every person deserves to be loved by someone that thanks God for them on a daily basis.
Yes.
You want someone to worship you, to love you, to care for you, to respect you. You want that person to have that inside integrity. You want that person to have that empathy, the type of empathy and love that if you are sick and you call this person at work and this person knows, okay, I know I have a few extra hours on a book. My wife is sick, or my girlfriend is sick. I'm gonna go talk to my boss and I'm gonna go home because I want to make sure that she's taken care of. That's the type of love, the type of person, the type of empathy, the type of feelings that should be in every relationship. And if you're with someone that don't have the integrity to treat you like a queen, to treat you like the woman that they say they love, you're with the wrong person.
Yeah, you truly are. They always say what matters to you, you make time for. So if it were something that mattered to anyone, they would find a way to take care of what needs to be done with no questions asked.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take anything but that time and it would get done.
Yeah, and I can use myself for example because as a nurse, I worked in the nursing field for many years and I became injured in my back. And I had a patient that I was delivering a child for at that time. I was breaking her bed down so that we could prepare her for the delivery. And she hit my back with her foot. And I can hear and feel the shifting of my spine. And I became disabled due to that situation. And I could not stand there. I could not walk for years. It is amazing, thank God, that I'm able to stand and walk today.
Wow.
And my husband was active duty military at that time. And it was a lot of red tape at first, but my husband fought. My husband said, look, my wife is injured. My wife can't move. My wife can't bathe herself.
Right.
And I have my 13-year-old daughter at home.
Right. It
and
was
my
important
13
to him.
can't lift my wife. And so my husband made sure that whatever documents were needed to take to his CO at that time, they called them commanding officers, to get him on extended leave.
He did it.
And he did it.
Yeah, it was important to him.
Yeah.
And what I also wanted to add was, don't be afraid to tell somebody what you're going through.
Yes.
And you're going to have someone that's not always going to believe you. So move on to the next person. And that person that claims to be your friend should always believe you. Even when you're with someone they don't want you to be with, your friend will never leave your side. They're going to be happy as long as you're telling them that they're happy, but that you're happy. But when you decide that it's time to go, and you tell them what's going on, and your real friend will do whatever they can to help you move forward and get away from that. So we just need to stay steadfast and just keep this momentum going and just try to let our youth and people out there that are hurting, that you aren't by yourself. Sometimes we always think we're the only one in this situation, or no one's gone through or have gone through what I've experienced. And like I
Yes.
said, mine's may not have been to the level of others,
Right.
but it doesn't
But it was
just
still
come
domestic
from
violence.
true. It doesn't just come from physical.
Right.
It comes from emotional as well. And I've been talked down to, before, and when I was younger, I just would let it roll off,
Yeah.
or say something smart back, because I can be real slick out the mouth sometimes. But I changed a great deal, because I choose now. Before, I didn't pick and choose my battles. I was at it, everything.
Right.
And I recognize the reason why I was at everything, because of what I went through in my younger years.
All that chaos.
So that carried all the way through my 20s and my 30s, and it wasn't until my 40s, actually when I turned 40, when I started to say, okay, something has to change. And then even in my mid 40s, I came to a point where I was in a relationship, just got out of this relationship a year and a half ago, I'm gonna say about a year and a half ago. And it was kind of the same thing. It wasn't to the point of negative, but it was a point of control. And that's still negative. So
Yes,
I just contradicted myself. I mean, but in the sense of, it wasn't volatile,
Right.
and it wasn't so much emotional or disrespectful, but he just wanted
To
control certain
everything.
things. And so there's that part of unconditional love that wasn't brought in. So it was conditions, and I had to fight him on that. And like, this is not who I am. And the sad part about it was, the person that it was my best friend. And I didn't know he harbored all these feelings for me all these years. And then when he brought it to my attention, I know, because I just want you to be my best friend. I never looked at him, but somewhere along the way, that's how God has he has comedy with him too. Because I'm like, really, Lord, like, you just gonna do this to me? So it was a struggle for me, but I've overcome a great deal, and I'm so happy.
Yeah.
So it's like I lost some of my happiness because I allowed other people to pull it from me.
Yeah.
Because I'm such the person that I always want to give. So it used to be really hard for me to say no. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. I have learned to say no.
And that's great. That's great.
And mean it.
That's right.
Because
And
I was always the one to give.
Mm-hmm.
And if I ever needed anything, guess what? I didn't get. I didn't get anything.
You didn't get anything back.
I didn't get it.
And that's another thing about abusers, is the selfishness in them.
Definitely.
And before we end tonight's show, I have a special gift that I would like to give to Miss Dawn, because it's not many women that can sit on a panel like this and be as open and candid as you have been, and that can talk about what they've experienced and how now they're overcoming it, and the different things you're doing, and with writing your books and getting your voice heard. And with writing a book, you can get your voice read, in a sense, internationally.
Oh yeah, and I am fully exposed.
And so you can help so many by them reading and understanding and putting themselves in that same situation that you were in, because they remember, I was in that same spot.
Yes.
So I would like to say congratulations to that.
Thank you.
I have a special book. It is written by a pastoral counselor. She's a pastor, and she does domestic violence counseling and marriage counseling. And her main focus is about domestic violence, assault on a woman's heart. This woman has broken this book down chapter by chapter. This woman has told you exactly, word from word, from what God says in the Bible about domestic violence, about how God feels, about the assault on women's hearts, and about how God can punish you for being abusive. I have a page in this book that I would like to read before we close out. And the page is on God's heart for the victim. And that's the title, God's heart for the victim. And it says that God hears the cry of the battered and abused. Oh, hear, oh Lord, the desire of the afflicted. You encourage them and you listen to their cry. This is coming from Psalms 10:17. It says, God holds the victim of abuse in the palm of his hands. I am the Lord, your God, who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear, I will help you. This is coming from Isaiah 41:13. As I say, God hears you, he loves you, and he understands exactly what you're going through.
Amen.
Never give up. Reach out to God. Do anything you have to do. You get in a church. If you don't have a pastor at your church that does domestic violence counseling or that provides any type of services, reach out to my organization, which is www.findingyourdestiny.org. We have valuable information. This is our goal and our mission is to heal hearts that have been afflicted, that have been affected, that have been assaulted by domestic violence. And before I end, I would like to say this is a special gift to you. And please, whatever you do, if you're feeling sad or if you're having a reminisce, because sometimes I know domestic violence, sometimes it'll come back up if you see something, if you hear something, or, if you just know of another person that's in that situation, it'll come back up and it'll try to seep you back into. So withdrawing feelings, use that book as your guide. This is what God has told me to give to you because of the abuse that you had received. Now you're a woman standing on the other side of that panel and you're speaking on it. And this is what I want. I want women to get their voice.
Yes, because there's plenty room where I'm standing. So come on and join me, women, because there is room for more. And trust me, there's a whole new life out there, and I don't want you to miss any more of it.
All right. And before we end tonight, I would like to say there's a domestic violence hotline. If you need any referrals, any other type of counselings, anything you need, a safe shelter, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. It's a nationwide number. All they need is your zip code. Thank you and have a blessed night.